Good morning. Welcome to the March 3rd meeting of the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. In Mayor Hublin's absence, I'm Ron Anderson. I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. This meeting is being held both in person and electronically. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover. The city is committed to continuing to receive and hear your input on matters. We've been collecting public input through our correspondence web form, voicemail, and our engagement website, bettertogetheredina.org. It is important to know that all comments have been submitted, have been received and read prior to the start of this meeting. You do not need to submit the same feedback in another way. All feedback is considered equally, regardless in the way in which it was submitted. This morning, there will be 2 times to call in to provide comment via phone. The first is the community comment portion of the agenda, which will be coming up very quickly. You're allowed to speak about anything that is not on today's agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing. The second is the public hearing on authorizing the sale of land to West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust regarding 425 Jefferson Avenue. If you want to call in for community comment, call 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 7897924. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Administrative Support Specialist Liz Olson will time speakers. She will let you know if you go over 3 minutes. Remember, you do not need to call in this morning if you've already provided feedback. Also, please don't repeat information already presented. Call in if you have new comments or information to bring forward. Thank you. So, I wonder, Ms. Olson, if you can call the roll.
Commissioner Jackson. Here. Commissioner Staunton.
Here.
Commissioner Pierce.
Here.
Vice Chair Anderson.
Here. I wonder if you'd join the HRA in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The meeting agenda is established. I wonder if there is any commissioner who has any concern about the meeting agenda as such. Executive Director Neal, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Staunton moves. Commissioner Jackson seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. You know, I wonder if this sound can be adjusted. It seems like there's an echo in the room. Is that accurate? Okay, good. Very good. Thank you. Let's move on to community comment. During community comment, the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority will invite residents to share new issues or concerns that haven't been considered in the past 30 days by the HRA or which aren't slated for future consideration. Individuals must limit their comments to 3 minutes. The chair may limit the number of speakers on the same issue in the interest of time and topic. Generally speaking, items that are elsewhere on today's agenda may not be addressed during community comments. Individuals should not expect the chair or commissioners to respond to their comments today. Instead, the commissioners might refer the matter to staff for consideration at a future meeting. I wonder if there's anyone in the room who would like to speak on any matter of concern to them. Hearing from no one, I wonder if there's anyone on the phone that's called in, Ms. Benarat.
I do not yet have anyone on the call, but a full minute has not yet passed since we opened this portion of the agenda. There is a slight delay in the broadcast, so I would like to wait before moving on. My clock shows that it's 7:37, so I'll come back to you at 7:38 or when I have a caller, whichever is first.
Thank you.
I do not yet have any callers, so I think it's safe for you to move forward with the agenda.
Thank you very much. Brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any commissioners who have any interest in removing anything from the consent agenda? I am going to remove item D, Resolution 2022-05 on the 70th and France Tax Increment Financing District. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Jackson moves. Commissioner Staunton seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. On item D, I wonder if there are any commissioners who have any comments or thoughts on item D on consent. Okay. I just wanted to mention prior to voting on this matter that I've been very consistent in expressing concern on the project. And part of that is that the project has changed over the course of time. We've lost any affordability on the site, and we've replaced the potential for affordable housing on the site with a parking ramp. I have questions really about timing on it, and so I will not support the TIF district this morning, but I'm wondering if there are any commissioners that have any further thoughts on that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just in all fairness, the developer is putting over $3 million into our affordable housing fund in lieu of building affordable housing, and I just wanted to make that a part of the record.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the Resolution 2022-05 establishing the 70th and France Tax Increment Financing District and approving a tax increment financing plan, therefore?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Jackson moves. Commissioner Staunton seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion carried. Thank you. We next have a public hearing. I'm wondering about public testimony. This is actually Ms. Hawkinson's matter, and this concerns the 425 Jefferson Avenue purchase, I believe.
425 Jefferson, yes, the Akron purchase.
Oh, okay.
Good morning. So a year ago, April, the HRA acquired 425 Jefferson. We acquired that because it was essentially a vacant home that was a nuisance to the neighborhood. It was filled with trash, and it was in great disrepair. And I will go through this, but the purpose of acquiring it was to get it off the nuisance rolls and secure it for potential future affordability. So today I'm looking to have the house sold to the West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust for $1. The purpose is to provide long-term affordable ownership opportunities. The WALT, West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust, through their Homes Within Reach program, will sell the house to an eligible home buyer and keep the land, and that's their means of keeping it affordable for 99 years. And what is on the table is we acquired the house for $150,000, and I'm proposing to sell it for $1. We use the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to acquire the home, and this would be an eligible use. 425 Jefferson is in the northwest corner of the city in the President's neighborhood. Here are pictures of the state of the house at the time we acquired it. And this was the state that it was in for a long time, which is how it came to our attention through our health department. So the resolution, when it was approved to acquire the home, does state that one of the purposes is to rehabilitate, to benefit the neighborhood, and potentially provide affordable housing for the community. Homes Within Reach, their vision is to transform people's lives through home ownership, and their mission is to use the community land trust practice to create and preserve affordable home ownership for families in suburban Hennepin County. And as you are aware, we have supported this organization through our allocation of block grant funds, and we have awarded them affordable housing trust funds for the ongoing preservation of modest homes in Edina. Selling a home to Walt does comply with our comprehensive plan and our housing strategy task force recommendations. To buy a land trust home, you do have to adhere to certain criteria. You have to attend first-time homebuyer classes. You have to review the ground lease with an attorney so they know what the situation is and how they get limited equity when they sell the home, and that they do not own the land on which the house sits. So that is made very clear before buying the home. They have to be income eligible and provide all that information. They have to provide a credit report. And there's a committee at Walt that determines the likelihood for successful home ownership. So it's a very vetted buyer program. And I just wanted to add some testimonials from folks that have bought land trust homes, how this has been a really transformative experience for them, how they are able to realize a dream that without this program they would not have been able to realize home ownership opportunities and raise their kids in a house with a backyard and send them to schools that they want to send their kids to. So there's a lot of really good testimonies. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm open for questions. And Brenda, the executive director of Walt, she is joining us via WebEx. So if there are any questions specifically for her, let Director Benarott know, and she will connect Brenda to the meeting.
I'm wondering, Ms. Hawkinson, does she have anything to say? Would she like to make a statement?
She did not indicate prior to today that she had a statement. I think she wanted to be available for questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I wonder if that brings forth any questions from any commissioner. Yes,
Chair.
Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. This might be a question for Director Neal, but it cost $150,000 to buy this property. Is there a condemnation process when we've got a nuisance property like this? And I'm imagining it's probably more expensive than $150,000. But if you could tell us what that alternative process is like.
Sure. Member Jackson and members of the HRA, the process is a standard process. Condemnation process is long. It is arduous. There's a lot of notification processes and thresholds that have to be made. I think that City Attorney Kendall was involved in this project as well. This one was particularly complicated because there was an estate, there was a death, and there was an estate, and there were heirs that we had to track down. And all that time that was going on, neighbors were suffering because of the situation there. And so they were getting more impatient. We finally realized we might be all money ahead if we just bought the thing. And so that's really what we decided to do, and then develop the plan to use it in this manner. So, yeah, it's a long process, and this ended up being a much more cost-effective approach to it.
Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions for Ms. Hawkinson this morning? Okay, I have one, a very brief one. How does title work exactly? As we move title to and the land remains with the land trust.
Chair, Commissioners, we would sell the entire parcel,
okay,
house and land,
right,
to Homes Within Reach or West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust. They would then rehab the home. Their intent is to rehab it, but we don't know the condition behind the walls, mold, and other issues. If it is not rehabable, they will have to demolish it and then build a modest, small home in its place. Then they sell it to the homeowner, and they split the house from the land at that time. When you go onto Hennepin County property tax site, they'll show the owner being the West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust. They enter into a ground lease with the owner of the home. So there is a mortgage and a note and title on the home with the home buyer.
Okay, and so in the future, the new homeowner sells that, the right to occupy the home?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Is there any other
Mr. Chair.
any other thoughts?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question.
Yes, thank you.
Director Hawkins, can you talk about, once the home is built, how do we go about finding a homeowner?
Chair, Commissioners, they have a long waiting list of people that are in the program that are looking for home ownership opportunities. I will say there's a house now that they did put on the open market at 520 Monroe, and I walked through it. It's beautiful how they rehabbed it. They put that one on the market. It would still have to go through the land trust process, but it's a slightly larger home than what they have currently on their waiting list for families. But they do have a list of families that have gone to them that are going through the vetting process, that are going through the classes, and they work off of that list first.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. This is a public hearing, and I'm wondering if there's anyone here with us today who would like to testify in this matter. Is there anyone on the phone, Ms. Benarat?
No, I do not have any callers right now. My clock shows that it's 7:51. I'd like to wait a minute before moving on, so I'll come back to you at 7:51 or when we have a caller.
Thank you.
It is now 7:51, and I do not have any callers, so I think you can move forward with your agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing at noon, March 28th, 2022, and continue action on this item to the April 7th, 2022 HRA meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Jackson moves, Commissioner Pierce seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Which brings us again to Manager Hawkinson, and this is, as we move to reports and recommendations, this concerns the redevelopment agreement on the term sheet at 4040 West 70th Street. Good morning again.
Good morning again. This time I have prepared statements to be time conscientious. Today's presentation is a follow-up to the last HRA meeting when I asked for up to $2 million to close the financing gap for the development of 4040 West 70th. Since then, the developers were awarded just over $700,000 from the Metropolitan Council, thus reducing the HRA gap to $1.3 million. This, combined with the TIF pay-go note, is a total HRA contribution of roughly $2.8 million. As you heard Tuesday night at our last HRA meeting, the construction costs are rising. For affordable housing developments, the ability to address these rising costs are limited as rents are capped by rates set forth by the IRS. Even with the rising construction costs, the development budget for Cornelia View is well within industry standards, even compared to developments that began construction over a year ago. Nick Anhut from Ellers and Alex Selke from Dorsey have been thoroughly engaged in discussions with the development team over the last several months and concur that $2.8 million is the funding needed to develop these affordable senior apartments. The developer was selected by the Edina Housing Foundation through a competitive request for qualification process. They were selected because of their history and capacity to complete quality developments, their ongoing oversight of completed developments, and the partnership of a for-profit and nonprofit corporations. Ecumen, a nonprofit, is the majority partner. They have vast experience in senior housing arena in ownership and management. Loopy Development Partners is a women-owned for-profit developer. They are the minority partner. They have a successful track record of building and maintaining a quality product. The Edina Housing Foundation is comprised of Edina residents who volunteer on the board of directors. They will remain deeply involved in this development as they will maintain ownership of the land and lease to the project for 99 years. As a reminder, the proposed Cornelia View Apartments will be located in the southwest quadrant of the city, across from Gallery in Southdale, near hospital, parks, and on the border of a residential neighborhood. The need for affordable housing has been demonstrated many times. The Maxfield Study created for the Housing Strategy Task Force reports that Edina is an aging community. The rate of growth for seniors outpaces the rate of growth for younger cohorts. Edina residents have expressed in the Quality of Life Survey that there's a desire for more housing choice for senior population. People want to age in community. The Maxfield Study further demonstrates that there's a need for 1,600 senior housing units by 2030. This is an increase from what we currently have. The demand for shallow subsidy housing, that is senior housing without rent assistance, the need is just shy of 300 units by 2030 and 400 units by 2040. The need for deeply subsidized senior units is again just shy of 300 units by 2030 and over 500 units by 2040. Cornelia View Apartments brings 118 affordable units to the market. Marketing has not yet begun on this development. Even so, just because of these meetings, as of last week, 73 people reached out to Ecumen and Loopy Development to request being placed on their interest list. Roughly 74% of the inquiries are from Edina residents. Anecdotally, I get a few calls each week from Edina seniors asking about affordable rental opportunities. As was presented at the last HRA meeting, Cornelia View Apartments is 100% affordable and will remain so for 99 years due to the ground lease arrangement with the Edina Housing Foundation. Yet there is a range within the affordability matrix ranging from serving households with incomes at 30% of the area median income to serving households with incomes at 80% of AMI. This provides a range of housing choices based on the tenant's incomes. Yet, as a 100% affordable development, the average rent serves households at 57% of the area median income. The rents are capped and highly regulated by the feds, tax credit investors, the state, and the funders. Rents cannot exceed the published cap rates in order to recoup unforeseen operational losses. I've highlighted a few times on why we move forward with affordable housing senior development. Now I'll reiterate why we need the requested public funding. With rents averaging 57% of area median income levels, there's not enough revenue to leverage the required debt to build the apartment. Private investors seeking a return on their investment are not interested. With affordable housing developments, the amount of debt that can be leveraged ranges between 30% and 70% of total construction costs. With Cornelia View, debt financing will provide roughly 45% of the total financing needed. The remaining 55% needs to come from other sources. This is true regardless of whether the developer is a nonprofit or for-profit corporation. Most of the rental income will be used to cover expenses and debt financing. As rents are capped, they cannot be increased to increase the cash flow to the developer. Therefore, the gap between the cost of construction and the amount of financing that comes from a bank can be filled with low-income housing tax credits, TIF, and what we call soft debt from public entities. TIF is a pay-go note, so it can leverage additional debt financing but gets paid as the taxes come in. The developers did an amazing job of securing financing from a variety of sources, which speaks well not only of them, but of the development itself. Surprising us all with the speed at which funding was secured, because it is so competitive, they are able to get an allocation of bonds from Minnesota Management and Budget, which leverages the tax credits, and also requires the development to close on all the financing by early July. The developers also secured financing from Hennepin County that would be structured as a forgivable loan, and 2 pass-through forgivable loans from Metropolitan Council. In addition to the pay-go note from the city, we're proposing that the HRA-approved gap financing to be structured as a deferred loan with 2% simple interest that is coterminous with the first mortgage amortization. The gap funds will be secured with a mortgage and note and will be in second position, subordinate to the bank financing. There's an application into Hennepin County for additional financing, which will be used to reduce our total gap amount. There's a chance that if the county funds are greater than the HRA participation, that the county may request to be in second position, in which case I'll come back and let you know, or ask. The closing of all financing will occur at the same time. There's no closing on any of the financing prior to when all the financing closes. As you're aware, the TIF note is based on tax revenue collected that is greater than what is currently being collected. Based on the development. The base tax capacity remains allocated to the city, county, and schools. The TIF is the increase derived from the new development. 95% of that increased amount will be pledged to the development and paid as taxes are collected. After 21 years, the full tax capacity will be directed to all jurisdictions. As with redevelopment TIF, the housing district must meet a but-for test. Ellers analyzed the pro forma and worked with the assessing department to predict post-construction value and sized the TIF note accordingly. The gap financing source is the Southdale 2 pooled funds. This increment is what was collected from commercial developments in the Southdale area from 2013 to 2021. So it came from commercial developments, not residential throughout the city. The HRA funding for Cornelia View is approximately $2.8 million. Of this, 1.5 is in the form of a pay-go TIF note. This is, as I said, 95% of the projected increment. 1.3 million is gap from the Southdale TIF. Of this 1.1 is special legislation funds that can only be used to support affordable housing at Almonds Flats, which is completed, the Sound on 76th, which is almost completed, and Cornelia View Apartments. It cannot be directed anywhere else. And whatever of that 1.1 that is not used here does get returned to the county for redistribution, of which the city gets 20%. So this just is to reiterate that, and whatever funds of this 1.1, the special legislation that gets paid back to the city, so if it were an amortized loan or a loan with interest rate, the principal and the interest must both be returned to the county upon repayment. So the recommended terms in the term sheet is that the developer secures all debt and equity, which they have done for the 2020. We're hoping to close in June. We're aiming for June because things get delayed and we can't exceed the first week of July. The project is to include affordability, scale, and amenities, as you've all seen and have approved, and that the HRA is to provide up to $2.8 million in gap. That is a combined source of the TIF pay-go note and the gap financing. That will be in second position, that will be deferred at the same term as the amortization of the bank loan, and it will bear 2% simple interest. The 1.5 will be from the pay-go note that it has no financial risk because it is executed after the completion of the construction, and up to 1.3 in the gap financing that will be funded through the Southdale TIF. All funds will close except for the TIF note, at financial closing. There will be no pre-funding of this development, and the distribution of the funds will be dictated by a master disbursement agreement that is being drafted by the developer's attorney and will be vetted by the city attorney and Hennepin County and the bank and all the funders that are involved. The funds that we're pledging will be reduced as more money comes into the development. 2 applications are outstanding. And if for some reason bank interest rates decrease and so they're able to leverage more debt, we will reduce our gap amount. There's a question about development controls, and I just want to reiterate that the gap is for construction costs. This is not operational. This is to get the building out of the ground. And for the investor to receive the tax credits after construction is completed, there's a full auditing of all the costs that have gone into construction. They're reviewed by the state to determine how many tax credits are leveraged. And then, so the investor is very, very involved during the construction process to make sure that all the tax credits pledged are going to be received. And then, as I said, there's this full audit at the end. During the operating phase, the tax credit investor is also very concerned about how the building operates. If they are not in compliance, their money is not secured by a mortgage. It's future tax credits for 10 years. So if anything goes south in this project, they lose all the equity they stuck in the building, and there's no recourse. So they are highly invested on the ongoing maintenance and operation of this building and everything that occurs. They dictate how the developer fee goes out. They dictate how the cash flow goes out. There's not much cash flow because most of it goes to debt, what's remaining. But they oversee all elements of that. And so I just wanted to show how this works with a tax credit project, which is what we have, Almonds Flats and the Sound, is they're owned by limited partners. And of that limited partner, when that's governed by a limited partnership agreement, of that partnership, 99.9% of the building is owned by the limited partner. And that is the tax credit investor. Who we work with is the general partner, and they own 0.01% of the project during the tax credit compliance period, the first 15 years. Of that 0.1%, Ecumen is the majority partner, and Loopy Development is the minority partner. So like Loopy, Steve Min here, he will own 0.0049%, his corporation of this building. And then, of course, another controlling factor is the land is going to continue being owned by the foundation. Public benefit. First, affordable age-restricted affordable housing in decades. First development with the 99 affordability period. The land remains owned by the foundation that is governed by Edina residents. It will comply with the green community standards for stormwater, infiltration, rain gardens, green roofs, energy efficiency design. It will be affirmatively fair marketed, and the contractor will work with female, minority skilled, and minority unskilled labor. So we today are asking for approval of the term sheet to include up to $2.8 million of funding. That is the pay-go TIF note and the deferred loan, and authorization to prepare all legal binding agreements, and a draft which will be presented at the April 7th meeting. Questions?
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Ms. Hawkinson, if you could go back to your TIF chart, I did not see the amount that the value is going to increase. No, back to with the wedge, that one. One of the things that I think has been lost in the discussion of this is that this project will be more valuable than what's there now. Can you give us a rough estimate of how much it's going up in value?
He mouthed it to me, but I can't read lips very well.
Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Anhut.
Commissioners, Nick Anhut with Ehlers & Associates. It's good to see you all here. We anticipate in discussions with the assessors that the value of this property will increase to roughly $20.5 million after it is redeveloped.
And can you tell me what approximately it's worth if it were on the open market?
It was acquired for $3.6 million.
$3.6 million. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Anhut. So that's my only question, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be interested in seeing the waterfall, just to understand how the cash flows operate throughout the project. I know we don't have that detail today, but I would like to to see that?
Chair Commissioners, yes, the waterfall of the cash flow is outlined in the limited partnership agreement, which is being drafted, but it's a very dense document and will probably not be finalized until right before the closing in June. I can share the waterfall with you, but that is, in my experience, gets edited as much as budgets get edited, about 400 times.
No,
So
that's
it will
fair.
be a long time.
And then my other question, as you talked about limits on revenue, just the construct, since we can increase rents, how we maintain the ability to operate the building. So there will be operational losses, and if you can't increase rent to drive more revenue, just describe again how that keeps the building solvent if you can't increase rents, and theoretically our operational losses will continue, the costs are going to continue to go up to operate the building.
Chair Commissioners, in the pro forma, they built a 2% income escalator and a 3% revenue escalator. So clearly revenues will increase faster than rents. Tax credit investors and other lenders require that there are reserves built into both the waterfall as well as the development budget. So before closing, there are reserves in the budget. One of the last installments of the equity from the tax credit investor is to fund the reserves. So that is built into the budget. The tax credit investor, why they're 99.99% owner, is what they get out of this deal for contributing all this equity is they get losses on their income taxes for 10 years. And so they sell, we sell those tax credits for a price, and the price is about 91 cents per dollar right now. And the coast, it exceeds $1. I've never understood that. So they do have to run at a loss, but when we do look at a 15-year cash flow pro forma, and it is solvent, but there's little cushion there. But we do build that in the waterfall as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I noticed that, and thank you, Mr. Ann, for being here this morning. Mr. Selke, Dorsey Whitney, anything to add? I know you're present to speak on the matter this morning.
No, I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, Mr. Min, anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Steve
morning.
Min with Loopy Development. It seems like a long time ago we started this, but actually it's been quite accelerated, and we're quite pleased to tell you that working with your staff has been a delight. The finance team has been very firm in looking at your interests. I congratulate them on their efforts, and I think what we have today is a project that's probably getting to ground at least a year earlier than we thought, given the current market environment. I think that's in part due to the 99-year lease and the 99-year affordability that makes this a rather unique project. Many of our funding partners thought that was something worthy of attention. And I'm pleased to tell you that the financing that we've received from our partners has been enthusiastically given, and that we have an excellent credit price from our investor. I've worked with this investor before. We locked in a nice interest rate before the volatility began about 3 or 4 months ago. So I think we have all the leverage that a good project should have. I'll briefly take a moment and address Commissioner Pierce's question. The waterfall, I think Ms. Hawkinson did a nice job describing the imperial entanglements that will ensue in the next 3 months to negotiate that. But it works something like this. There will be roughly $100,000 of surplus cash after operations if we meet our budget. Of that $100,000 every year, the waterfall first pays the investor some fees for asset management. It then funds the operating deficit reserve. It then funds the replacement reserve. There are a few other soft-term loans that have to be funded. And then at the end of the waterfall is me. I get whatever cash is left over at the very end. So they're not particularly profitable deals as an operational enterprise. That's by design. Most of the losses will be generated by the depreciation. And that's not an operational expense. I think, Commissioner, you understand that. but I'm happy to stand for any other questions you might have.
Does that prompt any further questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you, Mr. Min. That helps quite a bit.
Chair, Commissioners, he did forget one thing in the waterfall, is that there is 30% of any excess cash flow will go back to the foundation for the ground lease payment.
That's what I meant by the soft.
Oh.
I don't want to get into
So
too much
the
detail.
foundation, they're getting paid for their contribution of the land for that.
Very good. Thank you.
Just,
Any comments from commissioners?
Just one follow-up comment, just
Commissioner Pierce.
to say thanks. That's what I was looking for, just to understand how that waterfall or cash flows operate through. So thank you for that.
Good thought. Anything further? Is there a motion?
Well,
Comments?
do you want the motion first and then we make comments,
Well,
Mr. Chair?
If you have a comment, yes, please.
Okay, so I do have comments.
Thank you.
This is a big deal.
Yes.
This is a very big deal. And I see former council member Ann Swenson in the audience, and she's been instrumental in the Housing Foundation in making this happen. But my goodness, we're looking at 118 units, affordable for 99 years. And the showing, Mr. Min spoke to this, that the enthusiasm over this is overwhelming from the financial community, from the city, the comments we've been getting from the community. And I think we should celebrate the fact that we're getting close to closing on this. This is really a big deal, and it's been lots of work that's gone into this. So 118 units for 99 years. It allows people to stay in the community and to move to an easier living than keeping their single-family home. I'm just floored seeing on your presentation, Ms. Hawkinson, the number of funders that are involved in this, and it just shows the enthusiasm for this. I hadn't realized when we were talking about TIF that, of course, this means that the property value is going to go up as well. So the taxpayers of Edina are benefiting from this as well. I am so pleased to have this happen, and I want to thank everybody for the hard work and coordination that's gone into this. And I'm really happy to see today happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good thoughts. Any further comments? For me only, I just want to thank you, Ms. Hawkinson, for your hard work on this. It's a very necessary project in the community. And I recognizing that the developer has found some additional funds to kind of pare back from the original $2 million request. So unless there's anything further from any commissioner? Yes, thank you.
I do think that is worthy of acknowledging again that the developer did look at other sources to close the gap. And I just think it's important for people to hear that the developer is doing more than what's required in some instances. And I think that's commendable. And then Director Hawkins, you are tirelessly working on this, and appreciate all the phone calls and emails and answers to questions that you're getting. So definitely appreciate all of your work.
Thank you. Good thought. So anything further, then
I'll make the motion.
please do.
How about I'll let you read it?
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the term sheet and authorize staff to work with council on finalization of the redevelopment agreement?
So moved.
Commissioner Jackson moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Pierce seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now, in the interest of moving right along with a 9 o'clock possibility here, we are going to discuss soon the sale of real property located at 5146 Eden Avenue. To do so, we'll need to move into a closed session. Is there a motion to move into the closed session as permitted by Minnesota Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 3, to discuss the potential sale of real property located at 5146 Eden Avenue?
So moved.
Commissioner Staunton moves.
Second.
Commissioner Pierce seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. So we will now move into closed session, which would mean that we are going to clear the room as much as possible.